I had budgeted every penny for 6 months just to buy myself 3 days of silence. The hotel was prepaid, the train ticket printed, and for the first time since my breakup, I felt like a person instead of a utility. But when my sister Claire called 48 hours before my departure, I didn't realize she had already decided that my peace was the price she was willing to pay to keep her own secrets buried. The confirmation email on my screen was not just a receipt. It was a treaty I had signed with myself. $340 for the train ticket, $800 for the boutique hotel with the clawfoot tub and the view of the harbor, another $200 set aside for a dinner at a restaurant where they served courses with tweezers and did not ask if you wanted a high chair for a toddler. I stared at the total sum on the banking app on my phone, $1,340. To anyone else, it might have looked like a reckless weekend splurge. To me, it was the cost of buying my life back. I was 32 years old. I had a steady job, a credit score that never dipped below 750, and an apartment that was always clean. I was the person who remembered birthdays. I was the person who carried jumper cables in her trunk. I was the person who, when my relationship of 4 years imploded 6 months ago, had packed my own boxes, cleaned the shared apartment, and returned the keys without making a scene, because making a scene would have been inconvenient for everyone else. I was burnt out. I was hollowed out. My reliability had become a cage, and this trip to the coast was the key I had been fashioning in secret for months. I closed my laptop and exhaled, the sound loud in the quiet of my living room. It was done. Non-refundable. That was the most important word on the screen. Non-refundable meant I could not back out. It meant that for 3 days, I belonged only to myself. I walked to the window and looked out at the city street below. It was a Tuesday evening in late October, and the wind was stripping the last of the yellow leaves from the maples. I imagined myself in 3 days, walking along a different street, smelling salt water and wood smoke, with my phone turned off. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. I flinched. The reflex was automatic. A buzz meant a problem. A buzz meant someone needed something. I looked at the screen. It was just a notification from a news app. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. I needed this trip more than I had admitted to anyone. The next morning, the air in the office felt recycled and heavy. I worked as a project manager for a mid-sized logistics firm, a job that suited my temperament because it was entirely about anticipating disaster and preventing it before it happened. My manager, David, called me into his office at 10 o'clock. He motioned for me to sit, his face arranging itself into that expression of benevolent authority that usually preceded a request for overtime. "Anna," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I wanted to talk to you about the quarterly review." I sat straighter, my hands folded in my lap. "You have been a rock this past year," he continued. "The Anderson account would have fallen apart without your oversight. You know that. I know that." "Thank you, David," I said. "I appreciate that." He nodded, tapping a pen against his desk. "We are looking at restructuring the senior management tier next quarter. Your name is at the top of the list for the promotion. A promotion meant more money. It also meant more hours. But the validation felt good, warm and solid. It felt like proof that doing things the right way, the hard way, actually mattered. But, David added, and there was the pivot. "We need to make sure you are ready for the increased pressure. The team counts on you, Anna. Especially during crunch times. You are the one who is always here. You are the one who never says no when we are in a bind. That is your brand, my brand." He meant it as a compliment. I knew he did. But as I sat there, smiling and nodding, the words felt like he was describing a piece of heavy machinery, not a human being. I was the generator that kicked on when the power failed. I was the spare tire. I was the safety net. I walked back to my desk, the praise settling in my stomach like a stone. The team counts on you. It was the same sentence my mother used. It was the same sentence my sister, Claire, used. I looked at the framed photo on my desk. It was a picture of me and Claire from 5 years ago, before she had the kids, before I had the heavy job. We were laughing, our heads tipped together. We looked like sisters then. Now, we looked like a transaction. I shook off the thought. I had a train to catch in 48 hours. I opened my browser and looked at the menu for the restaurant I had booked for Saturday night. Roasted duck breast with fig reduction. I anchored myself to the image of that duck. Thursday afternoon arrived with a deceptive calm. I had cleared my inbox. I had set my out-of-office reply to activate at 5 o'clock. My bag was packed and waiting by the door of my apartment. At 4:15, my cell phone rang. The screen flashed the name. Claire. I stared at it for a second. We usually texted during the day. Claire, 2 years older than me, worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental clinic, a job she constantly complained about but refused to leave. I picked up the phone. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "Anna!" Claire's voice was bright, breathless. "I'm so glad I caught you. How is your day going?" "It is good," I said. "I am just wrapping up. I am heading out for my trip tomorrow morning. Remember?" There was a pause. A beat of silence that lasted just long enough to make the hair on my arms stand up. "Right," Claire said. "The trip. That is actually why I'm calling." My stomach tightened. I waited. "So, listen," she said, the brightness in her voice stretching thin. "Something has come up. A huge emergency. I need you to take the kids this weekend." I blinked at the wall of my cubicle. The kids were Leo, 8, and Mia, 6. I loved them. They were chaotic and sweet and loud. But I had a non-refundable hotel room. "Claire," I said slowly, "I leave tomorrow morning. My train is at 8 o'clock. I know, she said. "Rushing now. But this is a disaster. Anna, it is a total crisis. I have to go out of town. Like, immediately. I have no one else." "Where is Mark?" I asked. Mark was her partner of 10 years. He worked shifts at a manufacturing plant. Steady but tired. He picked up a double shift. Claire said, "He is locked in. He cannot get out of it. And Mom has her bridge tournament in the city. You know she cannot cancel that." I took a deep breath. "I can't. Claire, I literally can't. I have paid for everything. The hotel is non-refundable." "Anna, please," she said, her voice dropping into that register of desperate intimacy she used when she wanted to bypass my logic. "It is Leo and Mia. I am not asking you to move furniture. I am asking you to keep your niece and nephew safe for 2 days." I looked at my computer screen. My out-of-office message was ready to go. "What is the emergency?" I asked. "It is complicated." She said, "Is everyone okay? Is it a medical thing?" "It is just, look, you would not understand," she said, cutting me off. "It is a work thing, but also a personal thing. I have to be there. It could change everything for us." She was not giving me details. That was the first red flag. Claire was an oversharer. If she had a flat tire, I got a play-by-play of the lug nuts. If she had a cold, I knew the color of the mucus. Complicated meant she was hiding something. "Claire," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I cannot cancel this trip. I really need this break. You are acting like I am doing this to punish you." She snapped. The warmth was gone, replaced by a sharp edge. "I am not saying that, but I can help you find a solution that isn't me." I pulled up a sticky note on my desktop where I kept numbers. "What about the agency?" I asked. "The one you used last month? I can pay for the booking fee if money is tight." "No," she said instantly. "I do not trust strangers right now. Not with the kids." "Okay," I said. "What about Sarah Jenkins' daughter? The teenager down the street? You said she was great with Mia last time. She is away at college." Claire said, "She is in high school." "Claire, she is busy." "Anna, God, why are you making this so hard?" "I am not making it hard. I am trying to help you without setting fire to my own plans." My phone vibrated against my ear. A text message came through. I pulled the phone away for a second to glance at the screen. It was from my mother. "Diane, family helps family. Anna, don't be difficult." The heat flushed up my neck. Claire had called Mom before she even called me. She had primed the pump. She had set the narrative. Anna is being difficult. Anna is being selfish. I put the phone back to my ear. "Did you tell Mom I was refusing to help?" I told Mom I was panicked because my sister was leaving me in the lurch. Claire said, "I am not leaving you in the lurch. I have had this trip booked for months. You knew about it. We talked about it at Sunday dinner 2 weeks ago. I showed you the hotel photos. I forgot. Okay?" Claire shouted. "People forget things. Anna, not everyone has a spreadsheet for a brain like you." The insult landed where she meant it to. My organization was always treated as a quirk, a lack of heart, rather than the only thing keeping the family chaos from swallowing us all. I looked at the clock. 4:30. Claire. I said, "I will not cancel, but I will help you pay for a sitter. I will call the agency right now and vet them myself. I will pay for the whole weekend. It is not about the money," she yelled. "It is about trust. I need family. I need you. Why are you being so cold?" "I am not being cold. I am being a person with plans. You are being a brat," she said. "A selfish brat. You think because you have this fancy job and no kids that your time is more important than mine. You think you are better than us." I closed my eyes. This was the script. We had acted this scene a dozen times. Usually. This was the part where I folded. This was the part where I said, "Okay, fine, bring them over," and spent my weekend watching cartoons and cleaning up juice spills while Claire went off to handle her complicated life. But then I thought about the $340 for the train. I thought about the silence of the hotel room. I thought about the burnout that felt like a physical weight on my chest. "No," I said. The word hung in the air. It was small, but it felt heavy. "Excuse me?" Claire asked. "No," I repeated. "I am not doing it. I am going on my trip. I have offered to pay for a sitter. I have offered to help coordinate, but I'm not canceling." There was a silence on the other end of the line. It was not the silence of shock. It was the silence of calculation. "If you walk away now," Claire said, her voice low and hard, "do not expect us to show up for you later. When you are alone and crying because you drove everyone away. Do not call me." I felt a crack in my chest, a hairline fracture of guilt, but I looked at the non-refundable confirmation on my screen. "I have to go. Claire, I hope you find a solution." I hung up. My hand was shaking. I placed the phone on the desk and stared at it, waiting for it to ring again. It did not. I packed my laptop. I put on my coat. I walked out of the office, keeping my head down, afraid that if I made eye contact with anyone, I would start crying. I got home to my apartment at 5:30. It was quiet. The silence that usually felt like a sanctuary now felt charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. I poured myself a glass of wine, a cheap red that tasted like vinegar, and sat on my sofa. I needed to understand. Why now? Why this weekend? Claire had said it was a sudden obligation, but she hadn't said what. She hadn't said who. I pulled my phone out and opened my calendar app. I scrolled back. 2 weeks ago. Saturday. Babysit LM. Claire sick. 4 weeks ago. Sunday. Babysit LM. Claire shift cover. 6 weeks ago. Saturday. Babysit LM. Mark overtime. I stood up and went to my desk. I opened a fresh notebook. I started writing. August 12th. Emergency dental appointment. 6 hours. September 4th. Car trouble. 8 hours. September 18th. Mark's back went out. Overnight. I went back 2 years. I cross-referenced my calendar with my text messages. The pattern emerged in blue ink on the white page. Every time Claire had a crisis, it coincided with a long weekend, a holiday, or a moment where I had expressed a desire to do something for myself. Last Thanksgiving, I had tickets to a show. Claire had a migraine. I missed the show. I cooked the turkey. My birthday last year, I wanted to go to a spa for the day. Claire forgot Mark had a mandatory training. I spent my birthday at a pizza place with a screaming 6-year-old. It wasn't just bad luck. It was a system. I looked at the dates again. There was another pattern. The requests were accelerating. In the last 6 months, since my breakup, Claire had asked me to take the kids almost every weekend. She had said, "You need the distraction." She had said, "The kids miss you." But looking at the dates, I realized she wasn't trying to help me heal. She was filling the vacuum of my time before I could fill it myself. She was banking on my loneliness. She was monetizing my guilt. I took a sip of the wine. It didn't taste like vinegar anymore. It tasted like clarity. She knew I had this trip. She knew it was important. That was why she had created this emergency. If she could break me on this, she could break me on anything. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Your sister is crying. I hope you are proud of yourself. You have changed. Anna. I looked at the message. I didn't reply. I went to my laptop. I needed to do this properly. If I just left, they would spin the story. They would tell everyone I ran away. They would tell everyone I abandoned the children in a time of need. I opened my email client and drafted a new message. I added Claire. I added Mark. I added my mother. Subject. Regarding this weekend and childcare. I kept my hands from shaking by focusing on the keys. Hi everyone. I am writing this so we are all on the same page regarding the upcoming weekend. As you know, I have had a trip booked to the coast for several months. This trip is non-refundable and represents a significant financial investment, as well as a necessary mental health break for me. Claire informed me today at 4:15 p.m. that she requires childcare for Leo and Mia for the entire weekend due to an unspecified emergency. While I love the kids deeply, I am unable to cancel my trip on such short notice. To ensure the children are cared for, I have offered the following solutions. 1. I am willing to pay the full fee for a professional sitter from the agency Claire has used previously. 2. I have offered to help vet a new sitter if the agency is unavailable. 3. I have suggested reaching out to Mark's sister, who has expressed interest in seeing the kids. I want to be clear. I am not abandoning the family. I am honoring a commitment I made to myself. I am happy to help facilitate a solution that does not involve my physical presence. But I will be boarding my train tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. as planned. I will have limited cell service while I'm away, but I will check my email once a day in case of a true life or death emergency. Love, Anna. I read it over. It was cold. It was corporate. It was exactly what they hated about me, but it was also true. I hit send. The swoosh sound of the email leaving my outbox felt like the sound of a bridge burning. I finished my wine. I checked my bag one last time. Toothbrush, charger, book. I turned off the lights in my apartment. The city outside was still moving, indifferent to my small rebellion. I knew what would happen next. The silence would not last. The email would be the match in the powder keg. They would not read the offers to pay. They would not read the logic. They would only read the no. Claire would escalate. Mom would moralize. Mark would stay silent. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be there to absorb the explosion. I was going to be on a train, watching the city fade into the distance, heading toward the ocean. I went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. I dreamed of calendars. I dreamed of dates floating in the air, rearranging themselves into bars of a cage, and I dreamed of Claire's face, not angry, but smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes, holding a key that she refused to give me. When my alarm went off at 6, the sun was just coming up. It was gray and cold. I got up, I dressed, I picked up my bag, I walked out the door and locked it behind me. The fallout was coming. I could feel it in the air pressure, but for now, the only thing that mattered was the train. I was going. I checked my phone one last time before getting into the cab. There were no new messages. The silence was heavier than the shouting would have been. I told the driver the address of the station. Drive, I said. Please. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. You okay, miss? I am fine, I said. I am just late for an appointment with myself. As the cab merged into traffic, I opened the note on my phone again, the list of dates. I added one more line at the bottom. October 24th, the day I stopped saying yes. It wasn't just a trip anymore. It was a line in the sand. And as the skyline of the city receded, I realized I had no idea what was waiting for me on the other side of the weekend. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't coming back the same person who left. The digital explosion happened 17 minutes after I sent the email. I was sitting on my sofa, the wine glass empty on the table, watching the screen of my phone light up. It did not buzz once. It buzzed in a continuous, angry spasm that rattled against the wood of the coffee table. I picked it up. The family group chat, innocuously named the Holloway Hive, had transformed into a courtroom where I was being tried in absentia. Claire, I am actually shaking right now. I just wanted my sister to help me in a crisis. I did not know that asking for safety for my children was too much to ask. Claire, I guess I missed the memo where Anna decided she was too good for us. Claire, Leo is asking why Auntie Anna is mad at him. What am I supposed to tell him? That was the hook. She knew I would see it. She knew the image of my 8-year-old nephew thinking I hated him would act like acid on my resolve. Then the chorus joined in. Aunt Sarah, who lived 2 states away and hadn't seen the kids in a year. Anna, honey, jobs come and go, but family is forever. Do not lose sight of what matters. Cousin Mike. Damn, that is cold. My mother. Diane. I raised you better than this. Anna. Since when do we transact with each other? Offering to pay for a stranger? That is insulting. I sat there, my thumb hovering over the keypad. I wanted to scream. I wanted to type out the list of dates in my notebook. I wanted to upload the screenshot of my bank account showing the transfers I had made to Mom over the years. But I knew it wouldn't matter. They were not reacting to the facts. They were reacting to the disruption of the ecosystem. I was the reliable one. I was the one who absorbed the shock. By stepping out of the way, I was letting the shock hit them, and they hated me for it. My phone started ringing. It was Claire. I let it go to voicemail, then Mom, voicemail, then Aunt Sarah, voicemail. The red notification bubbles climbed. 10, 20, 32. My chest felt tight, that familiar crushing sensation that I had always interpreted as guilt. But as I looked at the screen, at the sheer coordinated volume of the noise, I realized it wasn't guilt. It was pressure. It was the feeling of a wall closing in. I typed one message into the group chat. I kept my fingers steady. I have offered 3 viable solutions to ensure the children are safe. I am happy to discuss the logistics of hiring a sitter or coordinating with Mark's sister. I will not discuss my character or my decision to travel. If we cannot stick to the facts of childcare, I will not reply. I sent it. Then I did something I had never done before. I muted the chat. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was heavy, pregnant with the knowledge that I had just declared war. For the next 2 days, the silence from the family was absolute. It was a tactical withdrawal. They were waiting for me to break. They expected me to show up at Claire's door with an apology and a casserole, begging to be let back into the fold. When I didn't, the strategy shifted. I was at my desk at work on Tuesday, 3 days before my trip, reviewing the final logistics for a shipment of medical supplies to Seattle. My office phone rang. It was Julie. Julie was my best friend. We had known each other since college. She knew about the burnout. She knew about the breakup. She was the one who had encouraged me to book the hotel. But she was also friendly with Claire, a relic of the days when my family presented a united, happy front. Hey, I said, cradling the receiver. I was just thinking about you. Anna, Julie said. Her voice was odd, tight. Are you okay? I frowned. I am fine. I am just finishing up some work before the trip. Why? Oh, thank God. She breathed. Claire called me this morning. She was hysterical. My stomach dropped. What did she say? She said you were spiraling. Julie said. She said you were having some kind of breakdown after the breakup. She told me you were making impulsive decisions, spending money you didn't have, cutting off the family. She was worried you might do something unsafe. The room seemed to tilt. Spiraling, unsafe. Claire wasn't just venting. She was pathologizing my boundaries. She was painting a picture of a woman who was mentally unstable, a woman who couldn't be trusted with her own decisions, let alone the care of children. She told you I was unsafe? I asked, my voice flat. She said she was worried about your mental state. Julie said, she asked if I had seen you taking your medication. I closed my eyes. I didn't take medication. I never had. But the implication was enough to plant a seed of doubt. Julie, I said, I am not spiraling. I refuse to babysit because I have a non-refundable trip. That is it. That is the whole story. There was a pause. I believe you, Julie said, but she sounded shaken. She was so convincing. Anna, she was crying. She said she was terrified for you. Of course she was. Fear was a wonderful cover for control. If she could convince people I was crazy, then my refusal wasn't a valid choice. It was a symptom. And if it was a symptom, it could be dismissed. I need to go. Julie, I said, I am fine, I promise. But I need to handle this. I hung up. My hands were cold. This was not a disagreement about a weekend. This was a campaign. I picked up my cell phone and unmuted the chat. I found Claire's number and sent a direct text. Meet me at the Daily Grind in 1 hour. If you do not show up, I am blocking your number for the duration of my trip. She replied in 30 seconds. I will be there. I just want to help you. Anna. The Daily Grind was a coffee shop halfway between my office and Claire's clinic. It was neutral ground, public, safe. I arrived 10 minutes early and chose a table in the center of the room, visible from the counter. Visible from the door. I wanted witnesses. I ordered a black coffee and waited. Claire arrived right on time. She was wearing a beige cardigan I had bought her for her birthday and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked exhausted, fragile, the picture of a martyred mother holding the world on her shoulders. She saw me and rushed over, her eyes immediately filling with tears. Anna, she breathed, reaching for my hands across the table. I pulled my hands back and wrapped them around my coffee cup. Sit down. Claire. She blinked, looking hurt, but sank into the chair opposite me. She didn't order anything. She just looked at me with those wide, wet eyes. I was so worried. She said, Julie said you sounded distant. Stop. I said, the word was sharp enough to cut through the ambient noise of the espresso machine. Stop what? She asked, her voice trembling. Stop managing the narrative. I said, I spoke to Julie. I know what you told her. You told her I was spiraling. You told her I was unsafe. I am worried about you, Claire whispered, leaning in. You are not yourself. Anna, you are acting erratic. You are cutting people out. I am acting like an adult who said no. I said, that is not erratic. That is autonomy. And telling my friends I am mentally unstable because you did not get free childcare is not concern. It is slander. Claire recoiled as if I had slapped her. Slander? That is a legal word. Anna, we are sisters. Then stop treating me like an employee who went rogue. I said, I took a breath. Lowering my voice, we need to settle this. I am going on my trip. That is happening. I offered to pay for a sitter. Why have you not accepted that offer? Claire wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Her expression shifted. The fragility evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard look that I recognized from our childhood arguments. Because I do not want a stranger raising my kids, she said. It is 2 days. Claire, it is not raising them. And why do you need a sitter at all? What happened to Mrs. Gable? Gable was the elderly woman who had watched the kids since they were babies. She had to retire, Claire said, looking away. It was sudden. I watched her face. Claire was a good liar, but she had a tell. She touched her throat when she was improvising. Her hand was at her neck now. When? I asked. A while ago. She said vague, when, Claire? 2 weeks ago, she snapped. Okay? She quit 2 weeks ago. I stared at her. 2 weeks. You knew Mrs. Gable was gone 2 weeks ago, I said slowly. You knew you had this obligation coming up, and instead of finding a replacement, instead of asking me then, you waited until 48 hours before my trip to spring a crisis on me. I was trying to handle it, she insisted. I didn't want to burden you. No. I said, you wanted to trap me. You knew if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have time to help you find someone else. You waited until the last minute because you thought the urgency would force me to cancel. You bet against my boundaries. I bet on your love for my children, she hissed. I bet on you being a good person. I am a good person. I said, being a doormat is not a prerequisite for goodness. Claire let out a short, bitter laugh. God, you have become so rigid. You used to have such a big heart. Anna, you used to be the one we could count on. Now you are just cold. You are counting pennies and minutes like they are more important than family. She was doing it again. The pivot. Praise the past behavior. Compliance. And shame the current behavior. Boundaries. Rigid. Cold. I leaned forward. Let's talk about counting. Claire, I counted the weekends I have babysat in the last 2 years. Do you know how many it is? She waved her hand dismissively. I don't know. A few. 42. I said, 42 weekends. Almost every single time you had a shift. Or Mark had a shift. Or you just needed a break. I never asked for money. I never asked for a trade. I just did it. Because you don't have a life, she said. The words flew out of her mouth before she could stop them. The silence at the table was sudden and absolute. Claire froze. She knew she had gone too far. I looked at her. I didn't feel angry. I felt a strange, detached sadness. I don't have a life. I repeated, because I gave it to you. No. Anna, I didn't mean that, she stammered, reaching for me again. I just meant, you are single. You don't have the responsibilities I have. You don't understand the pressure. I carried this family. Anna, when Dad left, who took care of Mom? Me. Who made sure the house didn't fall apart? Me. I remembered it differently. I remembered Claire crying in her room while I cooked dinner. I remembered me filling out Mom's disability paperwork because Claire was out with her boyfriend. But Claire had rewritten history to make herself the martyr and me the beneficiary. You owe me, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You owe me for everything I sacrificed. I stood up. I put a $5 bill on the table for my coffee. I don't owe you my future. Claire. And I certainly don't owe you this weekend. I looked down at her. One last offer. I will pay for the sitter. I will deposit the money into your account right now. $300. That covers the agency rate for 20 hours. Take it or leave it. Claire stared at the money on the table. Her face twisted. You think you can buy your way out of this? She spat. You think throwing money at me makes you a good sister? Keep your money. Anna, I don't want it. Then you have made your choice. I said. I walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back, but I could feel her eyes on my spine, burning like a laser. I went back to work, but I couldn't focus. The conversation looped in my head. Mrs. Gable quit 2 weeks ago. You owe me. The malice was rising. It wasn't just desperation anymore. It was punishment. That evening, I was at home, packing the final items into my suitcase. I was trying to reclaim the excitement I had felt 3 days ago, but it was buried under layers of dread. My laptop chimed with a new email. I walked over to the desk. The subject line read, Inquiry received. Happy Home Family Services. I frowned. I hadn't contacted any family services. I opened the email. Dear Ms. Wood, thank you for your inquiry regarding our family intervention and support programs. Based on the referral provided by Mrs. Claire Halloway, we understand you are seeking assistance with anger management and familial stability. We have attached our brochure and a list of available counselors. Please let us know if you would like to schedule an intake assessment. Sincerely, the Happy Home Team. My blood ran cold. I read it again. Referral provided by Mrs. Claire Halloway, anger management, familial stability. She hadn't just told Julie I was spiraling. She was creating a paper trail. She was contacting organizations, using my name, creating a record that suggested I was seeking help for instability. If anyone ever looked, there it would be. A date, an inquiry, a referral from a concerned sister. It was a masterstroke of gaslighting. If I got angry about it, it proved I needed anger management. If I denied it, it looked like I was in denial about my problems. I sat down in my chair. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time. From realization, this was not a family spat. This was a tactical dismantling of my credibility. Claire was building a case. For what? I didn't know yet. Maybe to shame me. Maybe to gain leverage for something else. But she was planting evidence. I took a deep breath. I didn't delete the email. Instead, I took a screenshot. I opened a new folder on my desktop. I named it Documentation. I dragged the screenshot into the folder. Then I opened my phone. I took screenshots of the group chat. I took screenshots of the text messages where she refused the professional sitter. I went into my call log and screenshotted the missed calls, the times, the frequency. I wrote down a summary of our conversation at the cafe, quoting her as accurately as I could remember. "Mrs. Gable quit 2 weeks ago. You owe me." I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. I wasn't fighting with my sister anymore. I was gathering evidence against an adversary. I looked at the folder. It was small now, just a few files. But I had a feeling it was going to grow. I checked the time. It was 8 o'clock on Thursday night. My train left in 12 hours. I was still going. But now, I wasn't just packing clothes. I was packing insurance. I sent a reply to the Happy Home email. To whom it may concern, I did not make this inquiry. I did not authorize a referral. Please remove my information from your database immediately and confirm in writing that this request was made fraudulently by a third party. I hit send and exhaled. I sat back and watched the city lights through my window. The reflection in the glass looked like me, but harder. The Anna who would have folded, the Anna who would have cried and apologized and canceled the trip, was gone. Claire had wanted to teach me a lesson about loyalty. Instead, she was teaching me a lesson about war, and I was a very quick learner. I closed the laptop, the screen went black, but the little green light of the charging cable blinked in the darkness like an unblinking eye. I was ready. Friday morning dawned with a deceptive stillness. My bag was by the door, packed and zipped. My train ticket was a QR code on my phone, a little square of digital freedom. I had 12 hours before I needed to be at the station, as I had opted for the evening sleeper train to maximize my time away. At 10 o'clock, my phone rang. It was my mother, Diane. Her voice was softer than it had been in the texts. "Anna," she said, "I hate this tension. We all do. Please, come over for an early dinner tonight. Just a quick meal before you. Do whatever you are doing. Let's clear the air." I hesitated. My instinct screamed, "Whoa." My instinct said, "Grab your bag and run now." But the conditioned part of me, the daughter who wanted peace, wavered. "Just dinner?" I asked. "No yelling? No guilt trips? Just dinner. Mom promised. Dad's pot roast. Your favorite? We just want to see you." I agreed. I told myself it was closure. I told myself I could handle 1 hour of pot roast and platitudes before I vanished for 3 days. I arrived at my parents' house at 5 o'clock. The familiarity of the driveway, the oak tree I had climbed as a child, usually brought me comfort. Today, it felt like entering a trap. I walked into the dining room and stopped. It wasn't a family dinner. It was a tribunal. My mother was at the head of the table. Claire was to her right. Mark, Claire's partner, was to her left. The table was set. But no one was eating. They were waiting. They were seated in a formation that suggested they had been rehearsing this moment for hours. "Anna," Mom said, gesturing to the empty chair at the foot of the table. "Sit down." I stayed standing for a moment, gripping the strap of my purse. "You said this was dinner to clear the air." "Mom, this looks like an intervention. We just want to talk," Claire said. Her voice was calm, eerily so. She had dropped the hysteria from the coffee shop. Now she was the reasonable one, the concerned sister dealing with a difficult sibling. I sat down. The chair felt hard and low. "We need to resolve this weekend." Mom started. "We cannot leave things like this. It is tearing the family apart. There is nothing to resolve," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I am leaving at 8 o'clock. I have offered to pay for a sitter. The offer stands." Mark looked down at his hands. He was a big man, broad-shouldered and usually jovial, but he looked shrunken today. He was twisting his wedding band around his finger. Round and round, Claire sighed. Anna, we cannot use a stranger. I told you. It is a safety issue. Why? I asked. I turned to Mark. Mark, you know the agency I use. You know they are vetted. Why is this a safety issue? Mark flinched. He looked up, met my eyes for a fraction of a second, and then looked away. Toward Claire. It is just, we prefer family, he mumbled. It is better for the kids. He was lying. Or rather, he was repeating a line he had been fed. Mark was practical. He didn't care about family vibes when it came to childcare. He cared about logistics. If he was refusing a paid professional, it meant he was under orders. What is this obligation? Claire? I asked, turning back to her. You still haven't told me. If it is so critical that you need to derail my life, tell me what it is. It is a mandatory training, Claire said smoothly. For the clinic, new compliance software. If I don't go, I lose my certification. I looked at her. A mandatory training on a weekend? With 2 weeks' notice? Show me the schedule. I said. What? Claire blinked. Forward me the email. I said, the one with the training schedule. If I have the times. I can help coordinate the sitter for the specific hours you are in sessions. Maybe Mark can cover the evenings. We can piece it together. Claire stiffened. I can't do that. Why not? It is confidential, she said. Internal clinic documents. I almost laughed. It was such a bad lie. A training schedule for a dental receptionist was not a state secret. Claire, I said, that doesn't make sense. Stop interrogating your sister. Mom cut in. Her voice was sharp. She is under so much stress. Anna, can't you see that? She is trying to better herself. She is trying to keep her job. And you are nitpicking details. I looked at Mom. The phrase stuck in my mind. She is under so much stress. Not the kids need care, not we miss you. It was always about Claire's emotional state. The entire family architecture was designed to keep Claire from feeling stress. Because when Claire felt stress, everyone else paid for it. I am not nitpicking. I said, I am trying to solve a problem with facts. You are trying to solve it with my compliance. I stood up. I am not canceling the trip. I am leaving in 2 hours. Claire slammed her hand on the table. You are selfish, she shouted, the mask slipping. You are a selfish, bitter woman who wants everyone else to be as miserable as you are. Mark put a hand on her arm. Claire, stop. Don't tell me to stop, she yelled at him. She is ruining everything. I walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out the front door and down the driveway, my heart hammering against my ribs. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Anna. Wait. It was Mark. I stopped and turned. He was out of breath. His face flushed. He looked back at the house, checking to see if Claire had followed him. I can't do it. Mark, I said. I am sorry. I know, he said. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Anna, I shouldn't be telling you this. If Claire finds out, she will kill me. What? It is not a training, he said. I knew it. She is going to a retreat, he said. Business retreat. For that side thing she is doing, the wellness products. I stared at him. You mean the pyramid scheme? She calls it network marketing. Mark said wearily, but yeah, there is a big regional conference this weekend. She thinks if she goes, she will meet some diamond-level mentors and finally break through. She thinks this is the ticket. Anna, she has put a lot into this. I felt a surge of nausea. She wasn't saving her job. She was chasing a fantasy, and she was willing to sabotage my reality to do it. Why lie? I asked. Why not just tell me? Because she knew you would say no. Mark said, she knew you wouldn't cancel a trip for a business opportunity, so she made it a crisis. She made it mandatory. And you went along with it? He looked defeated. Anna, you know how she gets. If I don't support her dreams, I am the enemy. I wanted to keep the peace by sacrificing mine. I said, he didn't answer. He just looked at his shoes. Go on your trip. Anna, he said quietly, we will figure it out. I will call my sister. Claire will scream for a week. But we will survive. Thank you. Mark, I said. I got in my car and drove away. The revelation sat in my stomach like lead. It wasn't an emergency. It wasn't a medical crisis. It was a multi-level marketing conference. I drove back to my apartment. I had an hour before I needed to leave for the train. But I couldn't sit still. My mind was racing. She has put a lot into this. That's what Mark had said. Claire didn't have money. She constantly complained about living paycheck to paycheck. The clinic paid little. Mark's shifts fluctuated. Where was the money coming from for a business venture? I sat down at my computer. I hadn't looked at it in years, but I remembered the password. 3 years ago, when Dad had his stroke. Mom had asked me to set up online access for their joint checking account so I could help them pay bills while they were in the hospital. I had set it up, paid the bills, and then forgotten about it. I never logged in. It wasn't my money. I navigated to the bank's website. I typed in the username, Diane Halloway 70. I typed in the password. The dashboard loaded. I scanned the transaction history. Gas station, grocery store, pharmacy, normal life. Then I saw it. Transfer to Zelle. C. Halloway, $200. Transfer to Zelle. C. Halloway, $350. Debit. Happy Life. Global. $500. I scrolled back. The transfers were constant. Every week, sometimes twice a week, 200 here, 500 there. I clicked on the Happy Life Global transaction. It was the name of the wellness company. My mother was paying for Claire's inventory. She was paying for the business. And then I saw the date of the last big transfer, 2 days ago, $1,000. Transfer from savings. A. Wood Emergency Fund. I froze. Wait, I clicked on the transfer details. It wasn't from my account. It was from a sub-account attached to my parents' main login labeled Anna's Fund. I remembered. Years ago, I had given Mom $5,000. It was when I got my first big bonus. I told her, "Keep this for an emergency, for you and Dad. If the roof leaks or the car breaks down." I thought it was sitting there, earning interest. A safety net for them. I looked at the balance of Anna's fund. $0.00. It was all gone, every penny, funneled into Claire's account, into Happy Life Global, into the black hole of my sister's ambition. I wasn't just the babysitter, I was the financier. I felt a cold rage that was entirely different from the annoyance I had felt earlier. This was betrayal. This was theft wrapped in the guise of family support. I picked up my phone. I didn't call Claire. I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. "Anna? Did you change your mind? Are you coming back? I am looking at the bank account." "Mom," I said. Silence. "I am looking at the transfer history. I am looking at the $5,000 I gave you for emergencies." "Anna, listen." Mom's voice wavered. "It is complicated. It is not complicated," I said. "You gave my money to Claire. You have been funding her pyramid scheme with the money I worked for. She needed help." Mom whispered. "She was drowning. Anna, she has so much credit card debt. She just needed a break. This business, she thinks it is going to turn everything around." I couldn't say no to her. "So you stole from me?" "I didn't steal. It was family money. You gave it to us. I gave it to you. Mom, for your emergencies, not for Claire to play businesswoman at a conference. She is your sister," Mom cried. "Why are you so stinging? You have so much. You have the good job. You have the freedom. Why can't you share?" "Because she lies." "Mom," I shouted, losing my cool for the first time. "Because she manipulates you. And you let her. You are not helping her. You are enabling a delusion. And you used me to do it." I took a deep breath. I forced my voice down. "I am removing myself from this account," I said. "I am unlinking my email. I am done. Do not ask me for money again. Do not ask me to cover for her." "Anna, please." Mom sobbed. "Don't do this. We need you. You don't need me." I said, "You need a reality check." I hung up. I logged out of the bank account. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely type. I felt sick. The The betrayal went so deep it felt like it had rewritten my entire history with them. Every time they praised my success, were they just calculating how much of it they could siphon off? Was I a daughter, or was I a resource? My phone buzzed. It was a voice note from Claire. I stared at it. I didn't want to listen, but I had to know. I pressed play. Her voice filled the quiet apartment. It was low, intimate, and terrifyingly calm. So, Mom tells me you are snooping in the finances now. That is cute. Anna, really cute. You think you can shame us? You think you can pull the plug? Go ahead. Go on your little trip. But if you don't babysit this weekend, if you make me miss this conference, I will tell everyone. I will tell them why you are really running away. I will tell them about the summer after college. I will tell them everything. And you know Mark's sister works at your company, right? Imagine what HR would do with that story. The message ended. I sat there, frozen. The summer after college. I knew what she was talking about. It wasn't a crime. It wasn't even a sin, really. But it was a trauma. A period of severe depression where I had been hospitalized for a week. I had kept it a secret from everyone except family. I had rebuilt my life, my reputation, my stability on the foundation that I was fine. Claire was threatening to weaponize my mental health history. She was threatening to paint me as unstable to my employer, using a connection I didn't even know existed. Mark's sister. It was blackmail. Pure and simple. She wasn't just fighting for a weekend anymore. She was fighting for survival. If I stopped enabling her house of cards, the debt, the lies, the fake business would collapse, and she was willing to burn me to the ground to keep it standing. I looked at my suitcase. I could stay. I could capitulate. I could save my secret. But if I did that, I would be a hostage forever. Every time she needed money, every time she needed a sitter, she would dangle this over my head. I couldn't live like that. I needed armor. I needed something stronger than a no. I opened my work laptop. I logged into the Employee Benefits portal. I searched for EAP, Employee Assistance Program. I found the number for the legal and counseling hotline. It was confidential. It was third party. I dialed. A woman answered. Hello. This is the confidential support line. How can I help you? Hi, I said. My voice was steady, but tears were running down my face. I need to speak to someone about extortion and familial harassment. I am listening, she said. I told her everything. I told her about the threats, the bank transfers, the voice note. She listened. She gave me advice. Document everything. She said, do not engage emotionally. Set a written boundary, and if she contacts your workplace, that is harassment. We can help you file a cease and desist. I felt a tiny spark of power return. I wasn't just a little sister anymore. I was a woman with resources. I thanked her and hung up. I saved the voice note. I backed it up to the cloud. I backed it up to a thumb drive. I looked at the time. 7:15. I had to go. I grabbed my bag. I walked out of the apartment. I was terrified. I felt like I was walking onto a battlefield without a weapon. But as I locked the door, I realized I did have a weapon. The truth. Claire was betting on my silence. She was betting on my shame. She was about to find out that I had run out of both. I got into the cab. To the station. Please. As the car moved through the streets, I looked at my phone one last time. I sent one text to Claire. I have the recording. If you contact my workplace, or if you share my private medical history with anyone, I will release the bank records showing you stole $5,000 from our parents. Enjoy your conference. I turned my phone off. I didn't know if she would believe me. I didn't know if she would back down. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to be safe. I was taking it. I did not leave town that night. I wanted to. I had sat in the back of that cab, my thumb hovering over the power button of my phone, the driver waiting for a destination, I had said. To the station. But halfway there, the reality of my life had pulled me back like a leash snapping taut. I had a job. I had a team depending on me for the quarterly review on Thursday. If I vanished on a Tuesday night, I would be proving Claire right. I would be the unstable one. I would be the one spiraling. So I had directed the driver to take me back to my apartment. I had unpacked the bag, placed the toothbrush back in the holder, and prepared for the longest week of my life. I decided I would leave on Friday morning, exactly as planned. I would not give them the satisfaction of a premature exit, but the atmosphere had shifted. The air in my world felt thin, charged with static. Monday and Tuesday of the departure week, the silence from the family chat broke, but it did not break with anger. It broke with sugar. It started with a notification at 7 in the morning on Tuesday. A photo. It was a scanned image, grainy and faded, from 20 years ago. It was me and Claire in the backyard of our old house in Ohio. We were wearing matching sundresses, our knees stained with grass, my head resting on her shoulder. We looked like we shared a soul. Underneath, a caption. Found this while cleaning. Remember how much we laughed that day? I miss my little shadow. I stared at the screen, my coffee turning cold in my hand. It was a masterclass in emotional warfare. It was the love bomb. After the abuse, after the screaming, after the threats, the abuser returns with flowers and memories to remind you of the bond they are exploiting. I didn't reply. 2 hours later, another text. I'm sorry about dinner. Anna, I was just so stressed. You know how I get. I just want us to be close again. Can't we fix this? It felt scripted. It felt like lines pulled from a bad television drama about forgiveness. And then, like clockwork, the hook came at the end. If you could just help me out this one time, it would mean the world. It would show Mom and Mark that we are still a team. Just this once? There it was. The nostalgia was just the delivery system for the demand. I sat at my desk at work, the hum of the office around me providing a stark contrast to the chaos on my phone. My colleagues were typing, drinking coffee, complaining about the weather. They had no idea that in my pocket, my sister was trying to rewrite my reality. I decided to respond, but not to the emotion. I responded to the logistics. I had to stay grounded in facts. I opened the Notes app on my phone where I had compiled the list. I had spent my lunch break calling 3 different agencies and 2 private sitters recommended by a colleague with twins. I had checked their references. I had checked their availability. I copied the list and pasted it into a text message to Claire. Here are 4 vetted, professional options for the weekend. 1. Safe Hands Agency. Available. I will pay the deposit. 2. Mrs. Higgins. Retired teacher. Available. Saturday and Sunday. I will cover her hourly rate. 3. The University Sitter Service. Fully background checked. 4. I can take the kids on Thursday evening for 3 hours so you can pack. As a gift, I am not available Friday through Sunday. Please let me know which professional option you prefer so I can arrange payment. I hit send. I waited. The ... of her typing appeared instantly, then disappeared, then appeared again. She didn't choose an option. She didn't say thank you. Her reply was a single line, stark and white against the gray background. So you are choosing yourself. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. I put the phone down. Yes, I thought, I am choosing myself. Finally. But the victory felt hollow. Because I knew Claire, when she couldn't win with guilt. She switched to punishment. Wednesday morning, the punishment arrived. I walked into the office at 8:30. I felt good. I had slept 6 hours, which was a record for the week. I had my presentation ready for the client meeting on Friday morning, the last thing I had to do before my train. I logged into my computer and opened my calendar. There, blocked out from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, was a new meeting. HR discussion /D, Miller /J, Reynolds, D. Miller was David, my manager. J. Reynolds was Janice, the head of human resources. There was no agenda attached, no subject line other than discussion. My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. HR meetings with no agenda were never good news. They were ambushes. I went to the break room and got a glass of water. My hands were shaking. Paranoia. I told myself, it's just a review. David mentioned the promotion. But deep down, I knew the timing was too precise. At 10 o'clock, I walked into Janice's office. It was a sterile room with motivational posters on the wall that felt like mockery. David was sitting in one of the guest chairs. He looked uncomfortable. He didn't smile when I walked in. "Sit down." "Anna," Janice said. She was a woman who smiled with her mouth but never her eyes. I sat. "Is everything okay?" I asked. David cleared his throat. "Anna, we received a formal complaint this morning through the anonymous ethics portal." "A complaint?" I repeated. "About my work?" "About your reliability," Janice corrected. "And your stability." I stared at her. The words sounded like they were in a foreign language. In 5 years, I had never missed a deadline. I had never been late. The complaint alleges that you have expressed an intention to, quote, abandon professional obligations during a critical client window this coming weekend. Janice read from a sheet of paper. It also mentions concerns about erratic behavior following a recent personal trauma. The room went silent. I looked at David. He was studying his shoes. "Erratic behavior," I said slowly. "Personal trauma. The complaint suggests you might be planning to skip the Friday presentation for impulsive travel." Janice said, "Given that we have the Anderson account review, we need to address this. If you are struggling, Anna, we have resources, but we cannot have a no-show on a client day." The phrasing hit me like a physical blow. Impulsive travel, personal trauma. No one at work knew about the details of my breakup. I had kept it entirely professional. I had told them I moved, but I never told them about the emotional fallout. And impulsive travel? I had booked this trip months ago. Only one person used the word impulsive to describe my trip. Claire. She had done it. She had actually done it. She had contacted my employer. I felt a flash of heat go up my neck, hot and prickly. It was the anger of the violated. This was my sanctuary. This was the one place where I was defined by my competence, not my compliance, and she had poured her poison right into the ventilation system. I took a deep breath. I reached into my bag and pulled out my tablet. "Janice, David," I said, keeping my voice terrifyingly calm. "I would like to show you something." I opened my email archive. I searched for PTO approval. "Here's the email from 3 months ago," I said, sliding the tablet across the desk. "Approved by David on August 12th. Vacation request for Friday the 24th through Monday the 27th. David leaned forward and looked at the screen. He blinked. "I remember this," he said. He looked at Janice. "I approve this. She is off on Friday afternoon. The client presentation is Friday morning. She is cleared to leave after 1 o'clock. I pulled up another document, and here's the slide deck for the Anderson account. Completed 2 days early. It is in the shared drive." I looked at Janice. "My travel is not impulsive. It is booked, paid for, and approved. And my personal trauma is a private matter that has never, not once, impacted my performance." Janice looked at the tablet, then at David, then at me. The air in the room shifted. The accusation hung there, flimsy and exposed. "So you are not planning to skip the morning meeting?" Janice asked. "I will be there at 8 o'clock sharp, as I am every day." I said. Janice nodded slowly. She pushed the paper with the complaint to the side. "Well, it seems there has been a misunderstanding, or perhaps a malicious report. It is malicious," I said, "and I know who sent it." David looked up, his eyes wide. "You do? It is a family matter," I said. "A family member who is unhappy with a personal boundary I set regarding my weekend time. She threatened to contact my workplace to damage my reputation. I have the threat recorded on a voice note if you need legal verification." Janice's eyes widened. "That won't be necessary right now." "Anna." David let out a long breath. "Jesus. Anna, I am sorry." He walked me out of the office a few minutes later. In the hallway, he stopped. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "You are a star player. Anna, you know that. But the higher-ups, they hate drama. They don't care who is right. They just care if it is messy." "I know." I said, "Keep this contained." He warned, "If she calls again, or if she shows up, It is going to be a problem for your promotion. You need to lock this down. I understand. I said. I went back to my desk. I was shaking again. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was clarity. Claire had crossed the line. She had tried to destroy my livelihood to force me into submission. She didn't care if I got fired. As long as I was available to babysit, I couldn't just ignore this. I couldn't just gray rock this. I needed legal armor. I spent my lunch break in my car, parked in the furthest corner of the garage. I dialed the number for the legal aid hotline I had found the night before. I explained the situation to the attorney on the other end. I told her about the anonymous complaint. I told her about the voice note. That is defamation, the attorney said, and tortious interference with employment. You need to send a cease and desist, not a formal one from a lawyer yet. That costs money, but a formal written notice from you, it creates a legal timestamp. What do I say? I asked, grabbing a pen and a napkin. Tell her that any further contact with your employer will be considered harassment. Tell her that you have documented the false report, and reiterate your position on the childcare. Keep it clinical. Do not engage with the emotion. I thanked her. I sat in the car and drafted the message. I typed it out, deleted it, and typed it again. It had to be perfect. It had to be a wall she couldn't climb. Claire, I am aware that you submitted an anonymous complaint to my HR department today, containing false information about my employment and personal life. I have provided my management with documentation proving these claims are false, as well as evidence of my pre-approved travel. Let me be clear. Any further contact with my employer, my colleagues, or my management will be treated as workplace harassment and tortious interference. I have retained records of your threats. Regarding the weekend, I am not available. I have provided you with a list of 4 paid professional childcare options. I am willing to pay the deposit for the agency. That is my final offer. Do not contact me again unless it is to confirm which agency you would like to use. I read it over. It felt like firing a gun. I hit send. I went back to work. I focused on the Anderson account. I worked until 6 o'clock. I was exhausted, but I felt a strange sense of pride. I had protected my job. I had protected my boundary. I drove home. I stopped at the grocery store and bought a bottle of water and a pre-made salad. I just wanted to eat, pack the last of my things, and sleep. I had one more day of work, and then the train. I got to my apartment building at 7:30. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs. I turned the corner to my hallway, and I stopped. Sitting on the floor in front of my door were 2 small figures, Leo and Mia. Leo was playing a game on a tablet. Mia was asleep, her head resting on her backpack. Claire was standing above them, leaning against my doorframe, scrolling on her phone. She looked up when she saw me. She didn't look ashamed. She didn't look apologetic. She looked triumphant. You didn't answer my calls, she said. So I figured I would bring the solution to you. I looked at the kids. My heart broke. They were sitting on a dirty hallway floor. They looked tired. Claire, I said, keeping my voice low so I wouldn't wake Mia. What are you doing? I am dropping them off, she said. I have to go. My flight is in 3 hours. You cannot drop them off. I said, I am not home. I am leaving. You are home right now, she said, gesturing to me. And you are their aunt. You aren't going to leave them in the hallway. I know you. Anna, you are not a monster. It was the ultimate trap. She was using my own humanity against me. She knew I wouldn't close the door on an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. She knew I wouldn't call the police on my own sister in front of them. Leo looked up. Hi, Auntie Anna. Mom said we are having a sleepover. I looked at his innocent face. He had no idea he was a pawn in a game of chicken. I smiled at him. Hey, buddy. I unlocked the door. Come inside. Guys? Claire smirked. She picked up her bag. See? I knew you would come to your senses. I will be back Sunday night. Get inside. Claire, I said. She frowned. What? I have to go. Get inside. My voice was different. It wasn't the voice of her little sister. It was the voice of the woman who had stared down her HR director that morning. Claire hesitated, then stepped in. I ushered the kids into the living room. Look, I have those fruit snacks you like in the cupboard. I told Leo, can you get some for you and Mia? And maybe put on the TV? Yeah, Leo said, running to the kitchen. I turned to Claire. I pointed to the balcony door. Outside. Now. We stepped out onto the small metal balcony. The city noise was loud below us. I slid the glass door shut so the kids couldn't hear. You are insane, I said. You brought them here to force me to fold. I brought them here because you are their family, Claire hissed. Stop being so dramatic. Just watch them. It is 2 days. No, I said. I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? She asked. I'm calling the Safe Hands agency. I said, I am putting them on speaker. I dialed the number. It rang once, twice. Safe Hands. This is Sarah speaking. Hi, Sarah. This is Anna Wood, I said, looking Claire dead in the eye. I am calling to book an emergency placement for 2 children, ages 6 and 8. For the weekend. Claire's eyes went wide. Hang up, she mouthed. I'm looking for a sitter to start immediately. I said into the phone. The mother is unable to care for them and is leaving town. We have a sitter available. The woman said. Brenda is on call. She can be there in 45 minutes. The rate is $25 an hour plus a $50 rush fee. I will take it. I said, I am paying the deposit now. Anna, Claire grabbed at the phone. I pulled it away. I am authorizing the payment. I said to the woman. Claire stopped. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear. Not the fake panic she used to manipulate, but actual shock. She realized I was going to do it. I was going to hand her children to a stranger rather than submit to her will. You wouldn't, she whispered. I just did. I said, I gave the woman my credit card number. I gave her the address. Thank you. Sarah, send her over. I hung up and stared at the screen. I looked at Claire. Brenda will be here in 45 minutes. I said, you have 2 choices. You can stay here and wait for her, introduce the kids, and go on your trip knowing they are with a vetted professional that I paid for, or that you can take them and leave right now. But if you leave them here with me, I will hand them to Brenda the second she walks through that door. I am not babysitting. Claire, I am done. Claire stared at me. Her face turned red, then white. She looked at the glass door where Leo was eating fruit snacks and watching cartoons. You are a bitch, she whispered. A cold-hearted bitch. Maybe, I said, but I am a bitch with a non-refundable ticket. She stood there, vibrating with rage. She was calculating. She was trying to find the angle, the weakness, but there wasn't one. I had burned the bridge. Fine, she spat. She turned and ripped open the sliding door. Come on, Kids, she yelled. We are leaving. Leo looked up, confused. But we just got here. I want to stay with Auntie Anna. We are leaving, Claire screamed. Auntie Anna doesn't want you. She doesn't love you. Get your shoes. The cruelty of it took my breath away. She was willing to scar them just to hurt me. I stepped back inside. I knelt down in front of Leo. Leo, look at me. I said. I ignored Claire's screeching. He looked at me, his lip trembling. I love you very much, I said. I love you and Mia more than anything, but Mommy made a mistake with the dates, and I have to go on a work trip, okay? It is not because I don't want you. It is just a mix-up. Claire grabbed Leo's arm and yanked him up. Don't lie to him, she yelled at me. Tell him the truth. Tell him you chose a hotel room over him. Mark is going to pick you up, Claire said, improvising wildly. We are going to Grandma's. She dragged the confused, crying children out the door. Mia dropped her stuffed rabbit in the hallway. I picked it up. I held it out to Claire. She slapped it out of my hand. I hope you rot, she said. She slammed the door. I stood in the silence of my apartment. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I looked at the stuffed rabbit on the floor. I sank down against the door and put my head in my hands. I hadn't won. Nobody had won. It was a massacre. But as the adrenaline faded, I realized something else. The apartment was empty. The weekend was still mine. I stood up. I picked up the rabbit and placed it on the table. I went to the kitchen and threw away the empty fruit snack wrapper. I washed my hands. Then I went to my bedroom and zipped my suitcase shut. The siege was over. The walls had held. Tomorrow. I was getting on that train. And I didn't care if the whole world burned down behind me. I was not turning back. The sun on Friday morning did not look like liberation. It looked like a spotlight. I had been awake since 4 o'clock. My suitcase was standing by the door like a sentry. The train was scheduled to depart at 8:30, which meant I needed to leave my apartment in 45 minutes. I had not canceled the agency sitter, even though Claire had dragged the children away the night before, screaming insults. I knew her. I knew the desperation that pulsed underneath her rage. She had nowhere else to go. Mark was working. The usual sitter was gone. Mom was at her bridge tournament, or so she claimed. I was betting $300 on the fact that Claire would come back. At 7:15, the buzzer rang. I pressed the intercom. Yes, it is Brenda. From Safe Hands. A cheerful voice crackled. I buzzed her in. I opened my apartment door and waited. A moment later, the elevator dinged. Brenda stepped out. She was a sturdy woman in her 50s with sensible shoes and a tote bag that looked like it contained a Mary Poppins level of distractions. Good morning, Ms. Wood, she said, extending a hand. I am here for the placement. Thank you for coming. Brenda, I said, I have to be honest. The situation is fluid. The children are not here yet, but they will be. Brenda nodded, unfazed. I have seen fluid before. I am on the clock regardless. We went inside. I offered her coffee. We stood in the kitchen, the silence stretching out. 7:30, 7:40. My phone remained silent. I began to doubt myself. Maybe Claire had stayed home. Maybe she had called Mark's sister. Maybe I was wrong. Then, at 7:45, the door to the stairwell flew open. I heard it from the kitchen, the heavy thud of metal against the wall, followed by the scuffling of small shoes. I walked into the living room just as Claire burst through my front door, which I had left unlocked for Brenda. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her hair was wild, her eyes rimmed with red. She was gripping Leo's hand so tight his knuckles were white. Mia was trailing behind, dragging her backpack. You win, Claire said, her voice raspy. Take them. Just take them. I have to go. She pushed Leo toward me. I didn't move. I gestured to the woman standing by the kitchen island. Claire, this is Brenda, I said calmly. She is the professional sitter I told you about. She is fully vetted, CPR certified, and paid for until Sunday evening. Claire froze. She looked at Brenda, then back at me. The revulsion on her face was immediate and visceral. No, she said. Claire, I have a train to catch in 40 minutes. No, she shouted. I told you. They do not stay with strangers. They only feel safe with family. She turned to Leo, grabbing his shoulders. Tell her, Leo, tell Auntie Anna you are scared of strangers. Tell her you want her to stay. It was a grotesque performance. She was coaching him in real time, trying to manufacture trauma to suit her agenda. Leo looked at Brenda. He looked at the tote bag on the table, where Brenda had strategically placed a box of colorful markers and a bag of gummy bears. Then he looked at me. Does your hotel have a pool? Leo asked. I blinked. Yes, it has a big indoor pool. Cool, Leo said. He turned to Brenda. Do you know how to play Minecraft? My grandson is a wizard at it. Brenda said, smiling warmly. He taught me a few tricks. Do you want a gummy bear? Yes, please. Mia piped up, stepping around her mother. The tension in the room punctured with a soft hiss. The children were not terrified. They were not clinging to family for safety. They were bored, hungry, and perfectly happy to be bribed with sugar and screen time. Claire stood there, her hands empty. The narrative she had screamed at me for 3 days, that I was the only source of safety for these damaged, fragile children, dissolved in the face of a gummy bear. They are fine. Claire, I said, Brenda is excellent. You can go to your training. I am not leaving them with her, Claire shrieked. She threw her keys on the counter. If you leave, you are abandoning them with a random woman. If anything happens to them, it is on you. The elevator dinged again. We all turned. Mark sprinted into the hallway. He was still wearing his work uniform, his chest heaving. sweat beading on his forehead. He looked wild-eyed. "Claire!" he yelled. "Stop!" He rushed into the apartment, nearly tripping over the door frame. He looked at the scene. Me with my suitcase, Brenda with the gummy bears, Claire vibrating with rage. "Thank God," he wheezed, bending over to catch his breath. "I drove like a maniac. I thought you were going to leave them on the street." "I didn't leave them," Claire snapped. "Anna is trying to pawn them off on a hireling." Mark straightened up. He looked at me, then at Claire. "Why didn't you call Jenny?" he asked Claire. The room went quiet. Claire flinched. Her hand went to her throat. "What?" she said. "Jenny," Mark repeated. "My sister. I told you on Wednesday. I called her. She said she was free this weekend. She said she would love to take the kids. I gave you her number. I told you to coordinate the drop-off." I stared at Mark. Then I stared at Claire. "You had a sitter?" I asked. Mark looked at me, his face full of shame. "I thought she handled it. Anna. I don't know. When she told me you were refusing, I asked her why Jenny couldn't do it. Claire told me Jenny canceled. She said Jenny had the flu." He turned to Claire. "I just called Jenny from the car. She is not sick. She is at home, waiting for your call. She has been waiting for 2 days." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Claire didn't have a childcare crisis. She had a solution. She had a willing, free family member solution. She had rejected it. She had lied about it. "Why?" I whispered. Claire crossed her arms, looking at the wall. "Because I wanted you to do it," she said. Her voice was small, petulant. "Why?" I asked again. Louder. "Why me? If Jenny could take them, why did you spend 3 days terrorizing me? Why did you call my boss? Why did you try to ruin my reputation?" "Because you are slipping away," she screamed, spinning to face me. The truth finally erupted. Ugly and raw. "You are slipping away. Anna, you have the new job title. You have the money. You are moving on. And if you go on this trip, if you realize you don't need us, then who is going to help me?" She pointed a shaking finger at me. "Jenny won't lend me $500 when Mark is short on hours. Jenny won't co-sign for the business loan. Jenny doesn't feel guilty when I cry. I needed you to stay because I needed to know you were still mine." I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't about the kids. It never was. The children were just hostages. The ransom was my autonomy. She needed to prove that she could still snap her fingers and make me jump. She needed to prove that her chaos was more important than my peace. Because if she couldn't control me, she lost her safety net. She lost her bank. I looked at Brenda. She was pretending to be very interested in the gummy bears, but her eyes were wide. I looked at Mark. He looked sick. And I looked at Claire. I didn't see a monster anymore. I saw a drowning woman who was trying to use my body as a raft. But I wasn't a raft. "Mark," I said. My voice was steady. It felt like steel. "Call Jenny. Tell her to come get the kids." Mark nodded frantically. He pulled out his phone. "Claire," I said, "you are going to sit on that sofa and you are going to be quiet." "Make me," she sneered, though the fight was draining out of her. I walked over to her. I stood 6 inches from her face. "I have an hour." I said, "My train leaves at 8:30, but I can take a later one at 10 o'clock. I will stay here for exactly 60 minutes. I will wait until Jenny walks through that door, and then I am leaving." I turned to Brenda. "Brenda, I am so sorry. I am going to pay you for the full weekend regardless. But would you mind staying for the hour, just to keep the kids occupied in the other room? I don't want them hearing this." "Of course," Brenda said. She stood up. "Come on, kiddos. Let's go see if Auntie Anna has a TV in her bedroom. I bet we can find cartoons." Leo and Mia jumped up, happy to escape the shouting. They followed Brenda into the bedroom and closed the door. I checked my watch. 8 o'clock. Mark was on the phone in the kitchen. "Yes, Jen. Yes, I know. I am sorry. Just come. Please." The front door was still open. A figure appeared in the doorway. It was Diane. My mother looked impeccable, as always. Her coat was buttoned, her scarf perfectly tied, but her face was a mask of fury. She marched in. "I cannot believe you," she said, zeroing in on me. "I get a text from Claire saying you are throwing the children out? That you are leaving them with a stranger?" She stopped. She looked around the room. She saw Claire sitting on the sofa, staring at the floor. She saw Mark in the kitchen, whispering into his phone, looking relieved. She saw the closed bedroom door where the muffled sound of cartoons was coming from. She saw me, standing with my suitcase, looking completely calm. "Where are the children?" Diane asked, her voice faltering. "They are watching TV." "Mom," I said, "they are eating gummy bears. They are fine." But Claire said. Diane trailed off. She looked at Claire. "Claire, you said Anna was hysterical. You said she was refusing to let you in." "I lied," Claire said flatly. She didn't look up. Diane blinked. "What?" She lied. "Mom," I said, "about everything. Mark just confirmed that his sister Jenny has been waiting to take the kids all weekend." Claire told Mark that Jenny was sick. She blocked the help so she could force me to cancel my trip. Diane put her hand on the back of a chair. She looked at Mark. Mark nodded grimly. "Why?" Diane whispered. "Because she needs money," I said, "and she needs control. And she knew if I went away and had time to think, I might stop giving her both." Diane sank into the chair. She looked older suddenly. The narrative she had clung to, that Claire was the victim, the stressed mother, the one who needed protection, was collapsing in real time. "Mom, can I talk to you?" I asked. I gestured to the balcony. Diane stood up slowly. She followed me outside. The morning air was cold. I didn't want to do this. I said, "I really didn't, but you need to know the truth." Diane looked at me. Her eyes were fearful. "I got a message this morning," she said quietly. "From who?" "From a woman named Sharon. She works with Claire at that company, Happy Life Global." My stomach tightened. What did she say? She asked if the wire transfer was coming. Diane said, "She said Claire had promised a significant investment by Friday at noon. She said Claire told them her sister was a silent partner. She said if the money didn't come, they would have to consider you a liability to the organization." I closed my eyes. A liability? She promised them money. I said, "My money." Diane nodded. She said Claire showed them. Documents, bank statements, proof of funds. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened the banking app. I navigated to the shared account history. "Look at this." "Mom." I handed her the phone. She scrolled. She saw the transfers. She saw the Anna's fund drained to zero. She saw the thousands of dollars funneling into Happy Life Global. She stole it. "Mom." "She took the emergency money I gave you and she funneled it into this scheme. And now she is promising them more. She is promising them my future earnings." Diane handed the phone back. Her hand was shaking. "She told me she was paying off debt." Diane whispered, "She told me she just needed to get back to zero. She is not paying off debt. She is buying status. She is trying to buy respect because she can't earn it." I looked through the glass door. Claire was still on the sofa, picking at a loose thread on her jeans. Mark came out to the balcony. He looked exhausted. "Jenny is 10 minutes away," he said. "Mark," I said, "tell us about the investors." Mark sighed. He leaned against the railing. "It is a diamond-level weekend," he said. "It costs $5,000 just to get in the room. Claire thinks if she goes, she can convince these investors to front her the capital for her own distribution center. It is a pipe dream. Anna, I told her that." "And if she doesn't go?" I asked. "If she doesn't go, she defaults on her contract." Mark said, "She signed something, a commitment. If she doesn't show up with the buy-in money, she loses her downline, she loses everything she has built, and she needs the weekend to meet them." I said, "But why make it a crisis? Why not just ask Jenny?" Mark looked at me, "Because if she goes and fails, if she goes and they laugh at her, she needs an excuse." I stared at him. "If you canceled your trip," Mark explained, "and stayed home to help, she could go, but if she failed, She could blame the family drama. She could say, I was distracted because my sister is unstable. She could say, I couldn't focus because of the crisis at home. She needs a scapegoat. I said, Mark nodded. She needs a reason why it isn't her fault. And if I didn't cancel? I asked. If I went on my trip? Then she couldn't go. Mark said, and she could tell the investors. I had a family emergency. My sister abandoned her duties. I had to stay home to protect my children. It was a win-win for her. Either I stayed and she had a scapegoat, or I left and she had an excuse to bail on the meeting without admitting she didn't have the money. She was using my reliability as a shield for her own incompetence, but there was one piece missing. Mark, I said, Mom mentioned documents. She mentioned that Claire listed me as a silent partner. Mark went pale. Did you sign anything? I asked him. I signed the initial enrollment. He said, but Anna, I saw some papers on the kitchen table last week. Guarantor forms. Guarantor forms? For a business loan, through a third-party lender. Did she sign them? I don't know, but they had your name on them. As the co-signer, I felt the blood drain from my face. She forged my signature? I don't know, Mark said again, but she had a copy of your driver's license. The one you sent her last year when you booked the family flights? I remembered. I had emailed her a scan of my ID to handle the check-in. I walked back inside. I went straight to Claire. Where are the papers? I asked. She looked up. What papers? The loan documents. Claire, the ones with my name on them, the ones you used my driver's license to falsify. She blanched. I didn't file them yet. Yet? Give them to me. I don't have them here. She said. Where are they? In my bag. She pointed to the oversized tote bag near the door. I walked over and dumped the bag onto the floor. Makeup, snacks, a tablet, and a thick manila folder. I opened the folder. There they were. High-interest business capital loan. Principal, $20,000. Cosigner, Anna Wood. Signature, Anna Wood. It was a clumsy forgery, but it was there, and attached to the back was a photocopy of my driver's license and a printout of my LinkedIn profile, highlighting my job title and company. She wasn't just stealing my cash. She was stealing my identity. She was leveraging my career to underwrite a scam. I looked at Diane. Mom, look at this. Diane walked over. She looked at the forged signature. Claire, she whispered, what have you done? I was going to pay it back, Claire cried. Once the business took off, I was going to pay it all off. She would never have known. I took out my phone. I dialed the number on the back of my debit card. Anna, what are you doing? Claire asked, panic rising in her voice. I'm calling the fraud department. I said, no. Claire lunged for me. Mark stepped in front of her. He caught her by the shoulders. Stop it, Claire. It is over. I put the phone to my ear. Bank of America. Fraud Services. Hi, my name is Anna Wood. I need to report identity theft and freeze all accounts associated with my Social Security number immediately. I also need to remove a third party from a joint account due to unauthorized transfers. I gave them the details. I watched Claire crumble. She sank to the floor, sobbing. Not the pretty, victim crying she did for an audience. Ugly, guttural sobbing of someone who has been caught. I hung up the phone. I wasn't done. I walked to the kitchen counter. I found a notepad and a pen. I wrote in bold, clear letters. To whom it may concern, I, Anna Wood, do not consent to be listed on any financial documents, loans, or business agreements related to Claire Halloway, Mark Halloway, or Happy Life Global. Any signature purporting to be mine is a forgery. I have reported this identity theft to the authorities. Date, October 24th. Signed, Anna Wood. I took a photo of the note. I emailed it to myself. I emailed it to Mark. Then I walked over to Claire. I held the paper in front of her. I am keeping the original, I said, and I am keeping the forged loan documents. If you ever contact my workplace again, or if you ever try to use my name for credit again, I will walk these papers to the police station. Do you understand? Claire looked up. Her eyes were full of hate. I will tell them, she hissed. I will tell them about the hospital. I will tell them you are crazy. Go ahead, I said. I looked at Diane. I looked at Mark. She can tell the world I was depressed 10 years ago. I said, she can tell them I struggle with anxiety. She can tell them whatever she wants. I pointed to the loan documents on the floor. But I have proof of a felony. The room went silent. Identity theft, forgery, wire fraud. It wasn't gossip. It was prison time. Claire knew it. Diane knew it. Claire's mouth snapped shut. The threat died in her throat. The doorbell rang. Mark looked at the door. That is Jenny. He opened it. A woman in a raincoat bustled in, shaking a wet umbrella. So sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. She looked around the room. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Is everything okay? Jenny asked. Everything is fine, I said. I went to the bedroom door. I opened it. Leo, Mia, Auntie Jenny is here. The kids ran out, clutching their gummy bears. They hugged Jenny. They didn't even look at Claire. I walked over to my suitcase. I zipped the front pocket where I had stashed the loan documents. I put on my coat. I walked over to Brenda. Thank you for staying, I said. I handed her $100 bill from my wallet. For the trouble. You have a good trip. Honey, Brenda said. She looked at me with respect. You earned it. I walked to the door. Diane stepped in front of me. Anna, she said. Her voice was trembling. I stopped. I didn't know. She said, I swear. Anna, I didn't know she went this far. I looked at my mother. I believed her. She hadn't known about the forgery. But she had known about the pattern. She had watered the seeds of Claire's entitlement for 30 years, and now she was terrified of the weed that had strangled the garden. You knew enough. Mom, I said, you knew she was using me, and you let her. I stepped around her. I looked at Claire one last time. She was still on the floor, Mark crouching beside her. She wouldn't look at me. I opened the door. I walked out into the hallway. I didn't look back. I walked down the 3 flights of stairs because I didn't want to wait for the elevator. I burst out onto the street. The air was cold and smelled of rain and exhaust. It was the sweetest thing I had ever smelled. I hailed a cab. Union Station, please, I said. As the cab pulled away, I pulled out my phone. I opened the family group chat. I didn't type a long explanation. I didn't justify myself. I typed 2 words, I'm out. Then I left the group. I watched the notification confirm it. You have left the conversation. I leaned back against the seat. My hands were shaking, but my heart was steady. I was going to the coast. I was going to eat duck with figs. I was going to swim in a pool. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't wondering if I had done the right thing. I knew. I had saved myself. The taxi had barely merged onto the highway toward Union Station when my pocket vibrated. It was not a text. It was a notification from an app I hadn't opened in months. The Westside Community Voice, a digital bulletin board for our neighborhood that was usually reserved for lost cats and complaints about garbage collection. I pulled the phone out. My screen was bright with a new alert. New post in general discussion by Claire H. My thumb hovered over the glass. A cold, prickling sensation started at the base of my skull. I clicked it. The headline was written in capital letters. Heartbroken mother seeking advice. Sister abandons family in crisis. I felt the air leave the cab. I read the text. I don't usually post things like this, but I am at my wit's end. I am a single-income mother trying to build a better life for my 2 children, Leo and Mia. I have an opportunity this weekend to secure their future, but my own sister, who has no children and a high-paying job at a logistics firm downtown, tagged logistics sector, has decided to leave town on a luxury vacation rather than help me for 2 days. She knows I have no one else. She knows the children are terrified of strangers. I am sitting here crying while she heads to the train station, leaving her niece and nephew without care. Is this what success does to people? Makes them heartless? If anyone knows a lawyer who handles familial negligence, please DM me. She hadn't named me. She hadn't named my company. But she had tagged the sector. She had named the children. and she had painted a picture so specific that anyone who knew us, anyone who worked with me, anyone who lived in our building would know exactly who the heartless sister was. She was weaponizing the community. She was trying to shame me into turning the car around. I looked at the driver's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Turn around, please," I said. The driver frowned. "You will miss your train." "Miss, I know," I said. My voice was ice. "Turn around. Take me back to the apartment." I wasn't going back to surrender. I was going back because I could not fight a digital fire from a moving train. I needed my laptop. I needed my records. And I needed to kill this narrative before it metastasized. I felt panic rising in my chest. A hot, frantic urge to comment on the post, to scream "liar" in the comments section, but I forced it down. Engaging publicly was what she wanted. She wanted a catfight. She wanted me to look unstable. I unlocked my phone. I took a screenshot of the post. I took a screenshot of the timestamp. I took a screenshot of the comments that were already rolling in. Wow, what a monster. Some people forget where they came from. Family comes first. Shame on her. I opened the email app on my phone. I found the contact for the board moderators. Subject: urgent. Defamatory post and harassment. Request for immediate removal. I typed with my thumbs, the car swaying as we exited the highway. To the moderation team. The post currently pinned in general discussion by user Claire H. contains verifiable falsehoods and is part of an ongoing campaign of familial harassment and attempted extortion. The abandonment claims are false. Professional childcare was hired and paid for by me, which the poster rejected. The poster is currently under investigation for identity theft and financial fraud against the subject of the post. This content violates your terms regarding harassment and doxing. I have attached the police report reference number for the identity theft file. Please remove this immediately, or I will include the board in the defamation suit. I hit send. The cab pulled up to my building. It had been 20 minutes since I left. It felt like 20 years. I paid the driver. I walked back up the stairs. I didn't unpack. I left my suitcase by the door. I walked to the kitchen island, opened my laptop, and waited. 10 minutes later, the post vanished. The moderators had acted fast, but the damage was in the screenshot. She had played her card. She had tried to destroy my reputation in my own neighborhood. There was a knock at the door. I checked the peephole. It wasn't Claire. It was Mark and Diane. They looked shell-shocked. Diane was holding her phone, her hand trembling. Mark looked like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. I opened the door. We saw it. Mark said. He stepped inside, pulling Diane with him. We saw the post before they took it down. "Anna, I am so sorry. I stayed by the island, putting the granite between us. She is trying to get me fired," I said. "She tagged my industry. She mentioned the kids' names. She is trying to make me toxic." Diane sat down on one of the bar stools. She looked pale. "I didn't think she would go public," Diane whispered. "I told her to stop. I told her you had evidence of the loans." She laughed at me. "Anna, she said you wouldn't use it. She said you were too soft." "I am not soft," I said. "I am just slow to anger, but I am there now." Diane looked up at me. Her eyes were wet. "I did this," she said. The room went quiet. I looked at my mother. For years, she had been the peacekeeper, the one who told me to be the bigger person, the one who whispered, "Just do it for me." "You did." I said, "I didn't mean to," Diane said, a tear tracking down her cheek. Claire was always so loud. Her problems were so big. And you were so steady. You were the rock. Anna, I thought you could handle it. I thought if I leaned on you, the whole family wouldn't tip over. You didn't lean on me. Mom, I said, you used me as a pressure valve. Every time Claire was about to explode, you opened the valve and let her vent it on me. You let her take my time. You let her take my money. You let her take my peace, because it was easier than telling her no. Diane sobbed into her hands. I was scared of her. She admitted, I was scared she would take the grandkids away. I was scared she would spiral and hurt herself. So I sacrificed you to keep her safe. It was the apology I had waited a lifetime to hear, but it didn't fix the post. It didn't fix the fraud. Mark looked out the window. "She is here," he said. I looked. A car had pulled up to the curb. Claire was getting out. She was alone. "Don't let her in," Diane said. Standing up, "Anna, don't let her in. I am going to let her in," I said. "Why?" Mark asked. "Because we are finishing this," I said. "Today, right now." I headed for the door. I unlocked it. Claire didn't knock. She threw the door open. She marched in. Phone raised. The red recording light was already blinking. "Say that again," she yelled, pointing the camera at my face. "Say you don't care about your nephew. Say you hope he starves. I want everyone to hear it." She was baiting me. She wanted a clip. She wanted 10 seconds of me screaming so she could edit it out of context and post it on TikTok as Karen Aunt melts down. I looked at the lens. I didn't blink. "Hello." "Claire," I said. My voice was conversational, low and steady. "Stop acting," she screamed, shoving the phone closer. "You were screaming at me yesterday. You were threatening me. Do it again. Show the world who you really are. I am the woman who paid $300 for a professional sitter that you rejected." I said, "I am the woman whose identity you stole to secure a $20,000 loan." Claire faltered. She lowered the phone slightly. "Shut up," she hissed. I turned to Mark. "Mark, are the children safe?" I asked. "They are with Jenny." Mark said clearly, "They are at her house. They are watching movies." I turned back to the camera. "The children are safe. Claire, they are with their Aunt Jenny. You are free to go to your conference. There is no crisis." Claire realized the video wasn't going to work. I wasn't giving her the villain she needed. I was giving her a press conference. She stopped recording. She shoved the phone in her pocket. "You think you are so smart," she spat. "You think because you got the post taken down, you won? I can post it again. I can post it everywhere. I can tag your boss. I can make sure you never get that promotion." "Why?" I asked. "Why what? Why are you doing this?" I asked. "The loan is found out. The money is gone. The kids are covered. Why are you still trying to burn me down?" "Because you think you are better than me," she screamed. Her face twisted into a mask of pure envy. "You sit in your high-rise office and you judge me. You think you are the success story, but you are nothing without us. Anna, you are just a lonely, bitter spinster with a cat and a 401k. I don't have a cat," I said. I looked at Diane. I looked at Mark. Then I looked at Claire. "I am offering you a deal," I said. Claire laughed. "A deal? You are in no position to offer deals. I have the loan documents." I said, "I have the bank records, and I have the police report number I just filed with the moderators." Claire went still. "Here's the deal." I continued. 1. You will scrub my name from every document you have ever touched. 2. You will never contact my workplace again. 3. Mom will stop covering your payments. "And in exchange?" Claire asked, her eyes narrowing. "In exchange, I won't press charges for the forgery." I said, "And Mark's sister Jenny will watch the kids this weekend so you can go to your little meeting. You get to save face. You get to pretend this never happened. You get to walk away." It was a generous offer. It was too generous, but I just wanted out. I wanted to get on my train and never look back. Claire looked at me. She looked at the suitcase by the door. She smirked. It was a slow, curling smile that made my stomach turn. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said softly. "Get what?" "I can't use Jenny." She said, "Why not?" Mark asked. "She's family." "Because I didn't sell them on Jenny," Claire said. She turned to me, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "I sold them on you." I stared at her. "What? The investors?" She said. "The Diamond Level Group. They don't just want my money, Anna. They want stability. They want to know I have backing. When I pitched them, I didn't just show them the bank account. I told them my sister was Anna Wood, the project manager, the one with the perfect credit score and the corporate connections." She took a step closer. "I told them you were my partner." She said, I told them you were fully on board, and I told them that if anything ever went wrong, with the kids, with the money, with the inventory, you would step in. Because you always cave. The room was silent. That was the pitch. Anna always caves. She had built her entire business strategy on the certainty of my submission. I wasn't a partner. I was the insurance policy. If she couldn't deliver, I would. If she couldn't parent, I would. That is why you needed me to babysit. I realized it wasn't about the kids. It was about showing them that I was under your control. If I babysat, it proved I was still in the role. It proved I was still the safety net. Exactly, Claire said. And if you leave, if you walk out that door, I look like a liar. I look like a fraud. And they will drop me. So you are not going, she said. You are going to stay here. You are going to watch the kids. And on Monday, you are going to sign the guarantor papers for real, or I will keep posting. I will keep calling. I will make your life a living hell until you do. She crossed her arms. Because you always cave. Anna, it is who you are. I looked at her. I looked at the woman I had shared a room with for 18 years. And I realized she didn't know me at all. She knew a version of me that had died 3 days ago. I took out my phone. I dialed a number. I put it on speaker. Hello? A voice answered. Hi, Jenny. I said, It is Anna. Oh, hi, Anna. Mark told me everything. I have the kids. They are great. We are making pizza. They are settled? I asked. They are happy? They are having a blast. Jenny said, Don't worry about a thing. Go on your trip. Thanks. Jenny, you are a lifesaver. I hung up. I looked at Claire. The kids are happy. I said, They are not coming back here. Then I opened my text messages. I typed quickly. To Claire Halloway. CC. Diane Halloway. Mark Halloway. Formal notice. I, Anna Wood, am permanently unavailable for emergency childcare. I am not a partner in your business. I am not a guarantor for your loans. I am not your safety net. Any representation of me as such is fraud. If you contact me, my workplace, or my home again, I will file the police report I have already drafted. I hit send. The ping of the message landing on Claire's phone was the loudest sound in the room. Claire looked down at it. She read it. Her face turned a color I had never seen before, a dark, mottled purple. You can't do this, she screamed. You are ruining me. I didn't ruin you. Claire, I said, I just stopped saving you. She looked around the room, desperate for an ally. She looked at Mark. Mark, tell her. Tell her she has to stay. Mark shook his head. No, Claire, it is over. I am done lying for you. She looked at Diane. Mom, make her stop. She is your daughter. Make her behave. Diane stood up. She walked over to me. She adjusted my collar, smoothing the fabric of my coat. She is behaving, Diane said softly. She is behaving like a woman with self-respect. Diane turned to Claire. And I am done too. Claire, no more transfers. No more covering. You have to stand on your own feet. Claire stared at her mother. The betrayal was absolute. Her enablers had unionized. She let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. I hate you, she yelled at Diane. I hate all of you. You want me to fail. You are jealous. She grabbed a vase from the entry table, a cheap glass thing filled with fake flowers, and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, shards of glass skittering across the floor. She stormed out the door, slamming it so hard the frame rattled. We stood there in the silence. The shattered glass lay on the floor like confetti from a party nobody wanted to attend. Mark exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. I am sorry about the vase, he said. It was $5 at a thrift store. I said, I looked at my watch. 8:15. I have to go. I said. Mark stepped forward. He hugged me. It was a fierce, desperate hug. Go, he said. Turn your phone off. We will deal with her. Diane hugged me next. She held on for a long time. I am proud of you, she whispered. I picked up my suitcase. I picked up my purse. I moved to the doorway. I stepped over the broken glass. I walked down the stairs. I didn't call a cab this time. I walked the 3 blocks to the subway station that connected to the train terminal. The air was crisp. The city was moving. I got to the station with 10 minutes to spare. I boarded the train. I found my seat, a window seat, facing the water. The conductor blew the whistle. The train lurched forward. I watched the platform slide away. I watched the city skyline recede, getting smaller and smaller until it was just a jagged line on the horizon. I was tired. My bones felt heavy. My head throbbed. But I was free. I opened my bag and took out the book I had been meaning to read for 6 months. I ordered a glass of wine from the dining cart. I watched the landscape change from concrete to trees, from gray to green. My phone buzzed. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. It wasn't Claire. It wasn't Mom. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, Anna. This is Sharon from Happy Life Global. We just got a call from your sister. She was screaming about you pulling funding. We are opening an internal audit on her account regarding the investor funds. Just thought you should know. Your name is all over the paperwork she submitted. We might need to ask you some questions." I stared at the screen. The boundaries hadn't stopped the storm. They had just moved the path of the hurricane. Claire's collapse was beginning, and the debris field was going to be wide. I looked at the wine in my glass. I looked at the trees rushing by outside. I could panic. I could call a lawyer. I could worry about what Monday would bring. But that was a problem for Monday. Today, I was on a train. Today, I was going to the coast. I turned the phone off. I dropped it into the bottom of my bag. I took a sip of wine. Let it burn. I thought. I opened my book to page 1. Thank you so much for listening to My Sister Knew I'd Planned a Trip. Still forced me to babysit. I refused. And writing Anna's journey from compliance to liberation was an intense ride. And I hope you felt every moment of that hard-won freedom. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Have you ever had to set a boundary that shook your whole family? Please share your thoughts in the comments in English. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story and want more realistic, high-stakes family drama, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. There are many more secrets to uncover. Until next time, keep your boundaries strong.